And good morning and welcome to this Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop. Our topic today is exploring apprenticeships in Arizona. I'm your moderator today, Steve Goldstein. We have a distinguished panel of experts here, and we thank them all for taking time early on this Thursday morning. Sean Hutchinson is director of the Phoenix Electrical Joint Apprenticeship Program. Dennis Anthony is the retired manager of technical and safety training for Arizona Public Service. He's currently the chairman of the Arizona Apprenticeship Advisory Committee. And Joanne Bueno is State Apprenticeship Program Director for the Arizona Apprenticeship Office at the Arizona Department of Economic Security. Thank you all for being here today. We expect a good, robust conversation for the next hour or so. And if you're viewing, which obviously you couldn't hear me if you weren't, we'd love to take some questions. If you have any specific questions for any of our panelists or more general, please put them in the chat window. We will eventually get to them. We'll sprinkle them in throughout the course of the entire hour. As we get through different topics, we'll try to place them in a logical position. Joanne, let's get started with a fairly general conversation, which is, can you define for us what an apprenticeship is and what some of the misperceptions of a registered apprenticeship might be?
All right. Well, thank you. That's what a best place to start, right? So apprenticeships, as we already know, it's an old concept. It really is just as simple as someone who is experienced and seasoned, who takes on another person who's not as skilled, and passes on that information and knowledge and that expertise to be able to also perform that kind of craft or occupation. Registered apprenticeship is just like that. It uses that model of being able to provide hands-on experience and passing on knowledge and skills development to another person. Registered apprenticeship today, in the modern times, the modern registered apprenticeship it starts out, and what it really is job. It's a job, it's employment, it's an actual work. But what makes it special is that that actual job gives this person who has that job the ability to acquire skills and knowledge throughout that duration to become proficient. And all of this done under the care and the intentionality of a mentor. So that is what registered apprenticeship is, and that is what is currently building our skilled workforce.
Well, I did want to have you follow up though, and I want to have just to get Sean and Dennis involved right away too, the misperception question, because you did mention it's a job. Do some people just see apprenticeship as something different from that?
Yes, in fact, when people think of apprenticeship, oh, these people are still going through training, they're not ready yet. And people think that, oh, it's a long wait, it takes too long, I can't. You're not waiting because it is a job and these people are already at your workplace. You are putting them to work. And while putting them to work, you already have this as an employer and you have this ability to be able to guide them and develop those good habits and pretty much already expose them to your company's culture of not just safety and quality, but also be able to really have a hand in molding that workforce. So a lot of people think, no, I have to wait, I have to wait. No, you get them right then and there, first day on the job. That is your workforce already. It's a ready workforce for you to be able to. Another misperception is that it's hard. It's cumbersome. If you really think about it, employers already do this. Whenever they hire people, they have an onboarding. Pretty much this is your onboarding, but structured because, the nice thing about it being structured and really intentional is that you're able to replicate and repeat this and expect good and positive results each and every time.
John, can I ask you about that misperception?
Sorry, was that for me? I didn't hear you,
Yeah.
Steve. Sorry.
Yeah, Sean, the misperception concept of just to get us off to right. When people hear apprenticeship, some people who don't know what's going on with what you folks do every day, what's the misperception that you'd like to knock out right away?
I think that people that want to come into an apprenticeship program, whether it's in construction or some other field, they think it's you go down and sign up for some schooling or whatnot. And sorry, there's a lot of background noise. Sorry.
Hey, Dennis, could I ask you to mute for the moment? See if it's your back. Come on. Good. Okay. Try again, Sean.
There we go. So yeah, it's because it's a career prep, it's preparing for a career, and whatever the trade is or whatever the occupation is, coming down and applying to become an apprentice in a program, it's preparing yourself for a career and a career in a growth field, in particular when you're talking about a lot of the construction trades today. So it's not school. It's a job that is preparing you for training in the field and a sorry a related instruction in a classroom to learn about the theory of whatever the trade is that you're learning.
Yeah. Dennis, let me bring you into this, talking about career versus job opportunities, because I think that for some people that might be a misperception too, that this is just going to be a job. How do you see it when it comes to apprenticeships leading to longer career opportunities for folks to actually build really a long-term situation?
Yeah, so this is truly a career. It's been a career for myself. It's been a career for Sean Hutchinson. And you learn your base skills. You go through your apprenticeship. You become a journeyman, and then there are pathways up to supervision, superintendent, even company owning your own company. We have some of the contractors that Sean works with. They went through the same apprenticeship program, started the company. And then there's just so many branches that can move your career, but more importantly as well, there's a lot of upward mobility, but there's also most of them, once you are a skilled journeyman, you have career opportunities that afford you pension, 401k, healthcare, especially particularly important in today's world. And so many jobs don't come with those things. And apprenticeship is really a pathway to the middle class. It really is that. And, I think we need to highlight that better.
I think that's such a great point. Sean, I see you nodding, and Joanne, I want to have you come in with a bigger picture, but Sean, go first on that one. I think that's the middle class part, because gosh, go ahead, Joanne. You're ready to go, but yeah, please go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to chime in with Dennis because it is truly a career versus a job, because a job it doesn't it you do go do something and you get paid for it day in day out. With a career, there's intentionality, there's involvement, not just of the person who's going through that journey, but their employers as well, the people that are in charge of their learning, their skill development. There's a path when it comes to a career, and that's what apprenticeships lead to. And just in that point, a job, there's no engagement. People jump from one job to another. With careers, it tends to be a journey. It tends to be a path that one goes into. And even at the end of at the end of one's career, or at the peak of one's career, one becomes a part of another person's journey. It's a cycle. That's what a career is. There's movement, there's direction. With a job, you hop from one to another. And on the point of it being, it builds our middle class, Sean, I will hand that over to you.
Well, yeah, and so Steve, just to kind of sum up kind of what an apprenticeship means. It is education, it is a career, it's a job, and I could speak, to the point of our program. We get applicants everywhere from high school graduates to middle-aged people that are seeking a new career, a more rewarding career. Our application process is just that, where they tell us about themselves, they take an aptitude test, to get an interview for a position in the program, and then selected from a preferred list of applicants. So when you look at the process of coming from an applicant through the apprenticeship to your career, it's a competitive process, and you need to want to do this as your career. You really want to have this as your pathway forward. So when you do come into the program, you're accepted in, you get a job on day one in the field. So we assign you to one of our sponsoring employers. We have a group of employers that contribute to our program. They pay an hourly wage to the apprentice as they work in the field and learn the trade side by side with a journey level worker. They go through the program. It's 4 years long. It's just like going to college, except you don't accumulate all the debt that comes with a college track, and you get you graduate to a job you already have in the field that of your study. So it really is it's a viable path forward for people that are planning for their future. To Dennis's point, we're sponsored by a union as well. We're local union 640, the National Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. They negotiate with our contractors competitive wage package for the apprentices, so they know at every step of the way where they start with their pay, when they get their raises, what benefits are included, and those benefits are significant. They provide the employers provide a benefit package that includes family health care, includes a defined benefit pension, and an annuity 401k. So you're getting all of these things on day one, instead of, again, the alternate track of post-secondary education is typically go to college, right? That's what's drilled into students as from kindergarten on. You're working your way to college so you could be a success story. Well, we're offering an alternative 4-year degree with an apprenticeship program that, again, provides the same results and a secure career that you're really getting your money's worth, because it is relatively low cost as well. A lot of apprenticeships are for free. They don't charge tuition. They don't charge for books. We have a relatively smaller tuition structure that is probably less than one semester of college for the entire time that you're in the program. So it really is a value when it comes to again, your career preparedness.
Dennis, did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I think I wanted to, Sean kind of highlighted there is, there's part of apprenticeship that is union, but we have as many non-union or non-union affiliated, let me put it that way, right? Non-bargained employee apprenticeships as we do union ones. Many of the non-bargained electrical contractors have banded together. They have their own apprenticeship programs that are structured extremely similar. There's on-the-job training that's tracked. There is related education. So there's a question in the chat from Matthew about whenever legislators hear the term apprenticeship regarding supporting workforce development, they think it's just for unions. Subsequently, often the legislature won't support apprenticeship programs. How do we change this perception? I think we just need to really go talk to these legislators and show them the numbers, because the numbers, in fact, of the apprenticeship, and Joanne can, has those numbers. This is for everybody. We have some new apprenticeships that are starting with TSMC and Intel for chip manufacturing technicians. We have bakers. At one point, we even had a horseshoeing apprenticeship here. And I don't know if they're still active, but we did for many years. And many of these trades and jobs, because apprenticeship used to also be specific to trades, Steve, and it's not anymore. It is starting to branch out and become, there are apprenticeships for professions now, like these chip technicians, okay? So trades, technicians, and it's moving into the professional field where we're seeing some experimentation now across the country with apprenticeships for teachers, where that may be, and I can tell you, I went through my apprenticeship at Local 640, and then and worked in the field. And then I went back while I was working, I went back to school as and got my degree as a professional educator at Arizona State. Okay. And I can tell you, it was a good education, but if that would have been coupled with more of an apprenticeship model where there was much more on the job field training, I would have been far better prepared under an apprenticeship model. And I speak from personal knowledge. So I think we're seeing that open up. And I think we just need to really talk to these legislators and let them know this isn't just a union thing. The apprenticeship model has been around, since like the 14th century. It can really be expanded to many things, and in a lot of cases you can drill down and learn the specific skills, knowledge, and abilities that you need to be successful in many different professions without going through a lot of extraneous classes like and I don't mean to criticize, but the college system leads you down a whole bunch of paths to give you this rounded education. Well, for employers, many times what's more important is that you have those skills and that technical knowledge to perform the task. And this is the difference in the apprenticeship model. An apprenticeship, I don't want to say it doesn't have anything to do with unions, but the two are not, mutually, exclusive.
They're not conjoined. Yeah. Yeah.
They're not conjoined. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Joanne,
hope
did
that
you,
answers the question
yeah.
for Matthew.
No, I think that was extensive. That was great. Joanne, do you feel comfortable commenting on the government aspect of this things about how to talk to policymakers about this kind of thing?
Well, it's not, let's not generalize. In fact, our government, our current administration is, has launched different programs recently. We have the Talent Ready AZ, we have the Build It Arizona initiative, Ready Tech Go, and all of these are all supporting one another, supporting registered apprenticeship to, build those workforces needed in, like Dennis had said, it's not just in construction anymore. We have advanced manufacturing, we have healthcare, even we have apprenticeships that are being offered in that industry. And to Dennis's point, even our educators, we are working with the different departments, with Arizona Department of Education as well, in eventually having our teachers go through a registered apprenticeship program. So there's not a lot of pushback anymore. Maybe that was the perception back then, but really we are in a great time where an administration is very supportive of registered apprenticeship, and truly we continue to educate to the point of, union affiliation. In fact, I'd say maybe 20% of our programs are union affiliated, the rest are not. So it really serves everyone. So just continued education and awareness would be able to help in this.
John, I want to go to something you're passionate about, and that is what should people be looking for when it comes to a high quality apprenticeship program? And are there lower quality things out there? Are there bad actors people should be watching out for?
It's a great question, Steve. For a quality program, really, you need to look at the graduation rates. Like, do they have students that start and complete the program and end up on a successful career path? Yes, there are a lot of bad actors out there. There are a lot of programs that, whether they're single employer, where your entire apprenticeship is attached to just one employer, and in construction, you're going to work for multiple employers during your time in that career because of the premise of construction employment. So looking for a multi-employer program that has multiple employers that sponsor or contribute to it. You want to look for the jobs that are available through it. There should be an employment component to that apprenticeship. A lot of quote unquote trade schools call themselves apprenticeship programs without the component of an actual job that they go to. So they charge a lot of money, some of these. It should be relatively low cost, if not completely free. So yeah, there are a lot of programs today with a lot of legislation out there that has, requirements for utilizing apprentices in construction, especially publicly funded jobs. Yeah, there are a lot of programs popping up calling themselves apprenticeships to comply with a lot of rules that come along with publicly funded projects. So yeah, there are things to look for. I think right now the Department of Education, Joe Greco over there that with the overseeing all the CTE programs for the state, he does a really good job of getting the information out there to the counselors. We are definitely seeing the tide turn more toward apprenticeship applications from high school graduates now than we've ever seen. And I really got to credit a lot of levels of government with their promotion of the trades. The governor's office with the Build It AZ initiative that Joanne mentioned, the Department of Education pushing more and more with the career counselors to at least cover the topic of, hey, this is a viable pathway forward for our high school graduates. So yeah, there's a lot of good things happening in the community today, and it's translating to just an enormous number of applications year over year for our program.
Joanne, we started this about 20 minutes ago, but we do have a question from Michael. So let me just reiterate, and it goes to you. What does it mean to have a registered apprenticeship? It's a good break to just remind people what a registered apprenticeship is. Go ahead and explain that for us, would you?
All right, so registered apprenticeship is a type of apprenticeship. A lot of companies have training programs they call apprenticeships, but a registered apprenticeship is that type of apprenticeship that is formally recognized and certified by the U.S. Department of Labor or us, a state apprenticeship agency. And what it is, the reason we certify them, because this program is that is registered, it means that program adheres to specific standards and quality controls of the industry for which they are apprenticing that occupation for. While a regular apprenticeship, could just be a company providing, they have on-the-job training, or they don't necessarily meet the standards of industry recognized by industry. And therefore, that's why every registered apprenticeship completer receives a nationally recognized credential issued by either the Department of Labor or us, the state of Arizona, as a state apprenticeship agency. And this nationally recognized credential, as the name suggests, is accepted because it meets standards of industry for which it was vetted for that occupation. So that's the difference.
Terrific. As a reminder, that is Joanne Bueno. Also here is Sean Hutchinson and Dennis Anthony. This is the Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop, exploring apprenticeships in Arizona. Dennis, I want to come to you first on this one. You mentioned briefly about talking to counselors, and I know we have at least one question from a viewer that is related to information. I wanted to ask you, where is the best information available for students who are considering some of their post-secondary choices? It's one of those that, to pull back the curtain a little bit, when we were doing our prep meeting, you mentioned that you had gone to talk to one school in particular, gave all this information, and then you went back a year later and the person said to you, boy, this sounds great. You said, well, the booklets I brought a year ago, you haven't touched them yet. So how do people find out the best information when they're considering what to do and partnerships with educators and schools, that sort of thing? Oh, you're on mute, Dennis.
Sorry, trying to be quiet. A couple of ways, Joanne Bueno's office, there's listings of the apprenticeships on the apprenticeship website. Also, all the apprenticeships, if you Google apprenticeship programs in Phoenix, Arizona, you're going to be able to get a whole list of apprenticeship programs, and almost all of them have a good website. And you can go in there and check out what's on their website and then use the contact number or email and get further information from them. I know Sean, I used to do this, and I know Sean is very active in this. We have the Skills USA, isn't it Skills USA? We have the event out at the National Guard base every year where we bring in literally hundreds of junior high and high school students just to expose them to apprenticeship programs and the crafts and trades. And then I know Sean spends a significant amount of time, as do other training directors in the high schools. They go and meet with the high schools. We're far more engaged, as Sean mentioned, now with Department of Ed than we used to be. And where we were missing, and I think Sean has really helped bridge this, and Joanne, is we were kind of missing that link actually with the Department of Ed, where they were actually pressing the schools and the counselors as well as, hey, this is an alternative education path. You should not discount it. And I don't know that it was being discounted, it was just being overlooked, right? And you look at apprenticeship, many of the trades and crafts, you go through your apprenticeship, you're going to make money while you're going to school. Your tuition, if any at all, will be quite low. It's typically books and a very low tuition. Plus, you're earning money at a guaranteed wage. And at the end of it, you're going to graduate making anywhere from $50 to $100 to $200,000 a year. When I was at Arizona Public Service, my linemen, substation electricians, polyphase metermen, anywhere from $150 to $200,000 a year job plus benefits. A journeyman wireman in Sean's program can come out and easily expect to make between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. So, I mean, these are good jobs. And so I make that point just to say educators shouldn't discount that, because if you look at a lot of the college degrees that come out now, if you graduate with a fine arts degree, right, or a liberal arts degree, what exactly are you going to do with that? You're going to have to find some way to shoehorn that diploma into some sort of a job,
I
right?
think you host morning scoops, Dennis. I think that's what you do.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that we're doing, and I think we're doing a lot more work with the governor's office, and we're so grateful that the governor's been so supportive of apprenticeship. It's been a long time since we had that kind of support. We're extremely grateful. But we do a lot of outreach. We just, I guess, need to do some more effective means of outreach.
Well, the phrasing I really like from this was from Jessica, one of our viewers, about the information question is a source of truth, which is an interesting phrase. Because Dennis, you did say there were some obviously reputable websites to look at, but source of truth really stuck out to me. Anyway, Sean, did you want to follow up on that?
Because, to a point earlier we were making about, all of these quote unquote apprenticeship programs, and Joanne nailed it with, they have to be registered with the state of Arizona's Department of Apprenticeship to be a registered program and to actually be an apprenticeship, considered an apprenticeship. But I wanted to follow up to Dennis's point on the wages and the earnings. And this is, one of the things that I tell the high schoolers, well, their parents, is the fact that, these kids come into this program and they start earning a living right away. The kids in our program in particular, I could speak to the money in our program, outside of the benefits and any overtime, just wages alone, gross wages over the course of 4 years, because again, I'm from the union side of things and everything is in a contract. That your wages right now today, from hour number one of your program to the 4th year graduation, your gross wages will equate to over $205,000 during that time, with a minimal cost that is out of pocket. You compare that again, I always make that comparison to the college track where you're tens of thousands in debt at the end and no job. You had to go find one. So the value of an apprenticeship really is, substantial in its impact to a high school graduate and what their future holds. So Dennis made a really good point on that with the actual numbers when you put it to the wages. But
Yeah, that hits people right between the eyes. Yeah.
And then of course the truth out there, the getting good information about the apprenticeships. Now I can't credit the governor's office enough. I hear the word apprenticeship in media and within all kinds of circles in industry more today than I've ever heard. I'm at her office talking with her staff about our program and what it's doing and what it wants to do, and and what our needs and what our goals are to make sure that we can accommodate, the construction economy that is hitting us also square in the eyes these days. So the governor is very receptive to, what we need to make things happen and make things grow appropriately for the industry. So it's been a really, really good last several years with not only a construction economy that's supported all the growth, but to be able to get the resources needed to provide quality training and a quality workforce to attract more industries to set up their factories and their facilities here in Arizona. So it is a far-reaching impact, the work that's being done.
Yeah, Joanne, let's play off that as far as a priority for the Hobbs administration. As Sean mentioned, just hearing the word apprenticeships, I'm hearing it more often too as well. How important has that been, and how big a difference do you think that can make when administration really gets behind this kind of thing?
Oh, huge, huge when an administration is supporting registered apprenticeship. So just a brief, background. Apprenticeship has been in our state officially for over 83 years. And it has been celebrated governor after governor since then. And to have an administration support for registered apprenticeship, everything will trickle into it. The economic development, the industries that are coming into our state will look into registered apprenticeship to build the workforce necessary for them to be able to not just operate but thrive in our state. So all these initiatives by our current governor have been tremendous, and we look forward to more of that. Plus, on a larger scale, the our current federal administration has put in over $2 trillion, on supporting registered apprenticeships through the bipartisan infrastructure law, through the Inflation Reduction Act, and of course the CHIPS Act. So we have seen a surge and growth of registered apprenticeship programs throughout the country because of that. So it really, truly is very helpful that the administration is backing up registered apprenticeship. It's a tried and tested model.
Yeah. Well, Joanne, when you mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, I want to go to one question here from Masabi. How hard is it to start a new apprenticeship program with the new opportunities that the Inflation Reduction Act has brought? Joanne, is that something you could talk about, or Sean or Dennis? I'm not sure which one to go to on that.
Honestly, so what our office does, we engage with the employers and we help them register and make their apprenticeship program, existing or non. Most companies do have what they call training programs. It's easier to be able to just register those and meet the standards of industry. But basically our office, my wonderful team, we call them the A team, shout out to them. They're probably watching right now. But our team helps employers register their programs. And really registration does not take a long time. In fact, the quickest time we registered a program was under 26 minutes. It's that easy. The hard part, quote unquote, it really is relative, what you think or deem is hard, is partnering, finding those related education providers that would partner with you and build that industry recognized, standards vetted program. But really, it is not that hard when you, as an employer, are engaged in it.
John?
To add a little something. Oh, sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's also, and Joanne mentioned this previously, a lot of employers are already doing this. So, but then there may be a few extra little steps they have to take that actually formalizes the training and documents the training. And then registering the apprenticeship with Joanne makes it really easy. I mean, in this space, I also do consulting for apprenticeship programs for a company that I work for in retirement. But most of the companies that they're already training their employees, it's just really a matter of formalizing and documenting that training and maybe making it just a little bit more robust to meet the set of standards. But it's not as much work as most people think that it is. And there's also some benefits, such as there is an exclusion for employees for training their employees. If they want to send them to night school, they don't necessarily have to pay them, right? So there's an exclusion. Typically, if you're not in a registered apprenticeship, you're going to pay for all the hours that you're training an employee, for their like related book training or online training, whatever they're doing. Apprenticeship, there is a carve out for that, to where they can do that training, that type of training on their own, not on the job training, but their work or education related training. There's a carve out for employers. So there's a bit of a savings there. There are other benefits with portable credential and standardization of training between industries that I think employers would find very, very useful to them.
I have a couple things to add on the employer side, and there's also a question in the chat about tax benefits for employers when they come into an. So look, that you could take on the steps of developing your own apprenticeship, or you could find an employer association that is already sponsoring one. The apprenticeship training is actually it's considered an employee benefit. And so that tax benefit that the question is relating to, it works in the same light as providing any other benefit to your employees. So getting involved with an already established apprenticeship, a multi-employer apprenticeship, would be the best path forward if an employer, it's in particular in construction, wants to take advantage of some of these, some of the jobs that are being generated by a lot of these Inflation Reduction and Infrastructure Act and all the other bipartisan legislation that's driving a lot of construction today. If an employer wants to take advantage of some of that opportunity, the best path forward would be seek out an association, whether it's union or non-union. Having a multi-employer association apprenticeship program means that an apprentice, when they transition employment, if they transition within that same employer association, they have continuity of their program. Their program follows them from one employer to another. That we have right now, we have, I think, 31 employers right now that are employing the apprentices from our program, with another 30 or so that are sponsors of the program and use us as a labor pool for their apprentice labor. So when they need an apprentice on their job site, they call up my office. They say, hey, we need 5 apprentices tomorrow morning, and we take from the eligible pool of applicants. We bring new apprentices in and we put them out to that employer, and they start working. When in particular, I could speak to my program. I don't know how a lot of the others work in the employment sector, but when an apprentice makes an application to our program, that is the last job application or job interview they'll ever have to sit for. Because once they're in the program, they get job assignments from us. We assign them to our sponsoring employers. It really is a really efficient system of delivering training and available workforce to our employers that sponsor us.
Great. Okay. And I want to thank all the viewers who've been sending in some great questions. I have another one. Joanne, I'm going to direct this to you, but obviously Dennis and Sean, feel free to chime in. This is from Tom. What advice do you have for potential applicants in rural parts of the state? A lot of us are focused on Maricopa County, maybe Pima County as well, but rural parts, that's an important component here in Arizona. Joanne, any particular advice or any particular guidance that might make it different for someone in a rural part of the state?
So a part of our information campaign or awareness campaign is to also empower individuals to ask for apprenticeship programs. In fact, we have had success in our barbering and cosmetology industry where individuals were encouraged, if you can find a barber or a shop or a salon that is willing to mentor you, we can help them with the apprenticeship registration process. And for small businesses, that has been helpful because really they're looking for a workforce, or at least 1 or 2 people to be able to help in their businesses, and to be able to know that there are these willing individuals. It works out. So for rural areas, and we are also starting to engage with our local workforce boards to tap those small business owners, medium to small sized business owners, to start registered apprenticeships to cater to their local youth and of course career seekers in their local areas. So if there are applicants out there and they know in their own area, ask for an apprenticeship, ask if they have one, and they will probably be interested to know more. And of course, AZ Apprenticeship at azdes.gov, that's where you could reach us. We are open to discuss. We're excited to discuss this stuff.
Dennis, any thoughts about the rural part of Arizona and how people go about that?
So I'll be real candid about that. I mean, most of the industry and the business opportunities are probably in Maricopa County, Pinal County, Pima County. Yuma County is starting to really be a player now, especially in the solar industry. Pinal is really picking up. So some of the areas that we used to consider rural are now becoming players, right? Slowly but surely. We're starting to see Yuma County pick up. We're seeing Pinal pick up. And I think that's going to spread. But the reality is that if you really want to get into an apprenticeship, and I'm talking about great numbers. I'm not really talking about the ones or twos that might be able to find those apprenticeships that Joanne's, kind of talking about. And I think that's great. But primarily, you're going to be going to one of the larger, counties where the industry and business community is more, just larger, right? And you're probably going to serve your apprenticeship in one of those areas. We go back and forth with Flagstaff and Coconino County. We've had apprenticeship classrooms up there in Coconino County before. When we have, work up there, we have done things in that area. But, the reality is probably most of the apprenticeship opportunities are in those 4 or 5 counties. And Sean and Joanne, you can jump in and tell me if I left anybody out, but help me out here. But I think that's the reality from my perspective.
Yeah.
That's really great perspective, Dennis, and you're absolutely right. The majority of in construction in particular, majority of the activity happens in those counties that Dennis listed. However, there are some of those more rural counties that are developing new energy, solar and wind and all these other alternative energy solutions are coming in a utility scale, are happening in the more rural areas of the state. So it does become a challenge to deliver training to somebody that's, in the middle of nowhere. Our program in particular, and I know some of the other programs out there, they are starting to adopt some computer mediated classroom training, where they can, get their, I mean, it's not ideal, but we do have solutions for those kind of remote type opportunities. But when it comes to the school, it doesn't, our classroom doesn't look like a traditional classroom. We're moving away from the whole lecture-based model and getting into the classroom, putting the tools in their hands and having them, show their proficiency in all the skill sets that we require them to graduate with. So yeah, we do have some solutions, but it's not ideal, but we can make it work. We will make it work. So yeah, and it's, I know we talk a lot about how to, get an applicant into a program and, start it on a pathway, but we also need to focus too on employers and their opportunity to come and seek out, the training through one of the established programs. And that's something I think we've historically not really focused on as much. We've always had our sponsoring employers, at least from our perspective, and then that's the crew that's, but we can take in any employer that'd be interested in taking advantage of the high quality training that's provided through our program or some of the other building trades programs.
Great. Okay. Joanne, can we double back? We have Stacy commented that you mentioned the simplicity of registering a program. And could you provide a brief overview of the details, like required hours, work processes? Could you give us a quick sort of Cliffs Notes version of that?
Okay, so as mentioned, a registered apprenticeship is employment, and each and every occupation that is determined for apprenticeship or chosen for apprenticeship, each one has what is called a work process. This is what outlines what needs to be learned in terms of the hands-on training and, of course, the related instruction that supplements it. And there's a requirement for each one, the hands-on training, the actual work at the work site, the on-the-job learning requires at least 2,000 hours or about a year. And depending on the complexity of the occupation and how safety hazard, safety sensitive it is, like an electrical program, which is that it could be longer. So like an electrical program will be 4 years compared to, let's say, a barber that only takes 1 year. And then all throughout that time, they are required to go through related instruction. It could be a classroom, online learning with a community college, a trade school, or a combination of all those, in-house training. And that requires 144 hours per year or per 2,000 hours. If you cut that down in a year, it's about 2 to 3 hours worth a week. So it could be done outside or it could be done within work hours or a combination of both. So that is what essentially needs to be built or put together by an employer or by a sponsor of apprenticeship, and that we make sure that that meets industry standards. Okay. Any and every sponsor of an apprenticeship program is required to monitor and track hours, because there is that hour requirement, but not just tracking hours, but ensure that the work process is being followed, that the quality of training is really provided. And at the end of the program, they need to be able to ensure that these individuals are indeed competent and proficient in those skills and knowledge and competencies that they have set forth in their work process. And basically, that's all we need from them. And upon meeting those requirements, they are given that completion certificate. So really, it's already what most companies, if not all companies, are doing when they're very much invested in building and developing their workforce or their employees. Nothing truly magical or extra special about it. We just make it sound fun.
Steve, just to
Yeah.
tag on there
Please.
from the business aspect as well. This is also for employers building a sustainable workforce. And we see the falling off, right? The graying of America, right? I'm one of those. But, we're seeing that fall off, and investing in your future employers and employees in their training and all that builds trust and respect and, a lot of those things that kind of have been missing the past few years. And it builds that loyalty to a company. If you took the time to train me, and I can tell you from my time at Arizona Public Service, we just didn't lose people. I mean, we invest a lot of money, the company does, in training linemen, substation electricians, polyphase metermen. We invest a lot of money in wages, schooling, running schools for them and all that, because it's totally paid for by the company. But it provides a sustainable workforce for us, because right now, if you go out in the open market, and I can tell you this, there is a huge shortage of journeyman linemen in the country right now. And you think about the storms in Florida and North Carolina and all that, and they were pulling people from all over the country. There's such a shortage of skilled labor. And now that the power's back on, now guess who they need? Now they need the guys that are coming out of Sean's programs, right? And his contractors to go in and rebuild all that infrastructure that was destroyed. So I think there is a employment sustainability here that employers should really look at leveraging for themselves.
Well, Sean, that leads to the idea of how pending retirement, specifically in the construction industry, are affecting the need for more apprentices in that realm. And so let me add one on there too, which is when it comes to building a sustainable workforce, makes me think about, in my business, we talk about institutional knowledge. So you can pass it from one to the other. Are we getting enough apprentices in the fields we're talking about today that they get there before these retirements happen so that you can not only have the sustainable workforce, but also learn from your elders at the same time?
Yeah, it is kind of a complicated formula to consider. It takes 4 years to create a journey level worker in our industry through apprenticeship training. And currently today in the entire employment market, 1 in 5 employees today will become eligible to retire in the next 10 years. And after that 10-year period, it is forecasted that 1 in 4 for the next 10 years will be eligible to retire. So there are some scary numbers about the loss of that institutional knowledge and the people that are leaving the industry to retirement. When we look at our program, because we're forecasting 4 years worth of commitment to these students to employ them, train them, and get them into a career that's again sustainable, our goals right now have never been higher. Right now, our program's goal right now is to graduate between 250 and 300 new journey level workers to the market over the next several years, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we're one program doing it in midst of several electrician programs that are in the Maricopa County area doing the same thing. It's a heavy investment, and it's a lot to consider, knowing that we're committing 4 years of our time and commitment to train somebody, and the expectation that that person will be committed to our program and learn the trade as best possible. So yeah, it's that's all we think about. It's how to not only accommodate the retiring workforce, but also to accommodate the growth, which has also been impactful in the recent years with all the construction going on around town. So they always say it's good problems to have, but they are problems, and that's and again, I keep going back to this, is why you really, if you're considering using an apprenticeship model for your employees training, then getting involved with an already established program to provide that training, you already have that structure in place that's making these thoughts and considerations about the future workforce and about the what's needed for accommodating it all. So again, I can't stress this enough. Don't start from scratch. There are plenty of it's not that hard to get involved, even in a union program. A non-union employer can very, very easily become a sponsor of a union apprenticeship with just learning a little bit about what there is to offer. And I would encourage anybody to seek that direction.
Dennis and Joanne, did you want to follow up on that?
No, I believe the gentlemen have already expressed it. But truly, Sean, those are scary numbers. And they say, oh yeah, the silver tsunami is coming. It's coming. We're actually riding it already. We're already surfing that silver tsunami. And the quicker industry, and now we're not just talking about construction, but the quicker industry realizes that there's a dire workforce need, and adopts not just apprenticeship, but work-based learning, to not just accelerate these people and skill them up in your industries, not wait for them after they've gotten their credentials and then start training them. Get involved. Industries would need to get involved in this training, educating process. And even and just to tie it with the question on the chat about CTE.
Yes.
CTE is actually a partner, a very strong partner to registered apprenticeship. In fact, our office, we are part of the CTE Skills Quality Commission, because both CTE standards and apprenticeship standards are vetted and approved by industry. They're aligned. There's no way they're competing with each other. If anything, CTEs prepare these individuals for success into registered apprenticeships. And CTEs also are able to provide opportunities for youth participation in registered apprenticeships. So they, by no means are they competing. In fact, all of education, CTE, high school, even post-secondary or community colleges and universities, we're all partners. We're all collaborators in the registered apprenticeship space. And in fact, studies have shown that anyone who has completed an apprenticeship program is more likely to look at further career advancement and therefore go into your community colleges or your universities and get further educated. So it's all a collaboration where there's no competition.
Great. We're down to just a few minutes left. Dennis, I wanted to bring up something that we had talked about before in our planning meeting. Can you talk a minute or so about the progress that's been made on recruiting more underrepresented groups, seeing more females taking part in apprenticeships? How much advancement has there been, and how important is that going forward?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, Steve. Appreciate you bringing that up. For years, and I mean, this has all happened within the past 5 to 7 years, right? For years, the previous 30, 40 years, we looked at the Department of Labor always gave us targets of your female participation target in apprenticeship was 7%, right? And we never met it. We were always kind of floating in there around 5 to 6% I mean for decades, right? That was about as good as it got for us. And now all of a sudden in the last 5 years or so, we have blown completely past that. In Arizona now, we are at the last numbers I had, we had 899 females in our programs, in all the apprenticeship programs, and that accounts for about 11%. So we have, last count was 7,964 apprentices. 6,743 of those were in construction. And of that, many of those females, and that 11%, are in the construction industry. And I know sitting, and I'm very, very closely aligned with Sean Hutchinson's Joint Apprenticeship Committee. I serve as a trustee on that committee. And typically any qualified female that applies for that program is going to get an apprenticeship. And I think most of the apprenticeship programs are that. That's what's going to happen if you're qualified, and there are minimum requirements you have to meet. Okay. And I want to be clear about that. But if you do that and you go through the interview process, your chances are very good you're going to get a chance to go prove yourself. And the really cool thing about that is that this is a standalone, it's a job that everybody gets paid the same amount of money. If you're a male journeyman or a female journeyman, there is absolute parity. There is no discrimination. We hear about that in other industries where there is some pay disparity, right? Not in our industry. If you're a journeyman, you're a journeyman, and you're going to make that amount of money, same amount of benefits. It's a tremendous career for a female. Likewise, we have, we're about 5.1% veterans. We do a lot of veterans outreach. Sean's program, he's getting ready to start the IBEW VEEP program, which is a veterans outreach program. He can talk more about that. We've had the helmets to hard hats program for a long time. I think the VEEP program is going to refresh that and increase our outreach to veterans. And we have a lot of veterans out there. If you look at the amount of homeless veterans and veterans that are struggling, right, to come back from what they've been through, apprenticeship is a good way to do that. It kind of gives them the structure that they need to get their lives back on track and provides a good check and some benefits for them and their families. And so, our outreach to all of, I want to bring up too, we're almost 2% of our apprentices actually have some sort of disability. So just because you're disabled, it does not discount you from, there's apprenticeships of all types, right? So we're doing a lot of outreach in many of those communities now. So nothing's off the table for us. And the opportunities are endless right now for everyone.
Terrific. Thank you, Dennis. We're up against the clock, Joanna. Sean, I can give each about a minute or so comment on what Dennis was commenting on, or if there's some final reminder you want to give folks. Joanne, let me start with you, please.
Well, just with what Dennis had said, the participation of a lot of underrepresented populations has increased in our workforce through registered apprenticeship. And on the flip side, it helps employers be able to not only diversify their workforce, but really truly build a quality skilled workforce for their organization and for their industries. And on the other side, for the career seekers, it changes lives. So truly everyone is moving in the same direction, which is forward. So apprenticeships, like a ship, it launches everyone forward.
And Sean, you have the last word, sir.
Steve, and I know Dennis captured a lot of what I was going to say anyway, but look, female participation in apprenticeships. I know, we have a lot of different apprenticeships in the state, but predominantly construction industry is most of the apprentices right now registered in the state. We don't have enough males to get the job done. So, I mean, we could hire every single male and still not be there. We need female participation, but I know that, culturally, it's not a traditional pathway for females, and that really begins in their upbringing and begins in the schools and the counselors and making them aware that there are pathways forward within the trade. I have 3 daughters. I tried to talk all 3 of them into coming into our program, and they probably made the right move and went other directions. But yeah, it's not culturally just not a traditional track, but like Dennis said, if they are interested in coming to the trade, they almost a guaranteed pathway forward through a program like ours. And really the only limiting factor to to opportunities for apprentices to come in and learn the trade is that the customers that hire construction companies need to demand that their subcontractors are training their workforce. We are only limited by the opportunities given to us by our customers. So when our contractors are looking at a job and they're incurring the cost of training apprentices, which it is a cost, they should be given some kind of credit for that within the customer base to realize that they're making the investment in training a future workforce and getting a better quality product out to the market for their customers. So customers that use construction need to realize that there are contractors that are making those investments in those apprentices. So, if anyone takes anything away from here today, it's the fact that the apprenticeship programs are only limited by the amount of opportunities given to us by customers that use construction contractors.
Well, that wraps up this Arizona Capital Times Morning Scoop, exploring apprenticeships in Arizona. To remind you, our panelists were Sean Hutchinson, Director of the Phoenix Electrical Joint Apprenticeship Program, Dennis Anthony, Retired Manager of Technical and Safety Training for Arizona Public Service, Chairman of the Arizona Apprenticeship Advisory Committee, and Joanne Bueno, State Apprenticeship Program Director for the Arizona Apprenticeship Office at the Arizona Department of Economic Security. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you all for viewing as well. Steve Goldstein.